Hey, it's Soul, and this is a guide to soloing the normal version of Zekvir, the big bad Delve boss for beginners, meaning you're doing well enough to unlock the encounter, but you get crushed, and maybe you can use a bit of a hand. Please like the video if it was useful, share it with others who might need this, subscribe for more WoW coverage, and catch me wherever I'm live. This is a beginner's guide, so I'm gonna slow walk through it. To unlock the encounter, clear a tier 8 Delve with lives remaining. A harder version of Zekvir is unlocked when clearing a tier 10 Delve with lives remaining, although that's not being covered in this guide, at least not until I can kill it myself, and then I'll slow walk you through that one too. As for when you should take on this encounter, you can start giving it a go as soon as you unlock it. Clearing an 8 with lives demonstrates your ability to do the very basics, like proper pulls, line of sight, and defeating the bosses of some of these delves, which can be a bit of a challenge. Zekvir is a single encounter with an inconsistent rotation of abilities, debuffs to manage, and a damage check, meaning if you don't deal enough damage, you're going to be overwhelmed by overlapping mechanics and abilities. To prepare for the fight, consider bringing along consumables and helpful buffs, and utilize a specialization that focuses on high burst damage within a short period of time. Consumables include potions, which are on the pricey side, also hearty food and flasks, which offer lots of extra stats and last for an hour, so you can get plenty of pulls in while learning the fight. Certain stat enchants can be helpful, so you can peruse the auction house and filter by current expansion to see them all. I suggest to focus on speed enchants to up your run speed, and if you have talents in your class tree that do the same, as in make you faster, it can't hurt. Drums, or budget bloodlust, can also greatly increase your attack and casting speeds. I suggest not using these unless you're loaded, or when you're more comfortable with the encounter and you just need that extra push. As always though, item level is king. The more gear you've got, the faster the boss goes down, the ad dies faster, one more poison tick or melee hit won't kill you, so if you're looking for a more comfortable experience, keep amassing champion and hero gear since you're capable of clearing 8s, but if you want to kill it now, stay tuned. Specializing Brann depends on you. If you're a DPS character, you're more than likely going to spec him as healer, as he offers cleanses, temporary immunities, and of course, heals for the encounter. If you are healing or tanking, spec Brann as DPS, as you can handle the other boss mechanics on your own, but you could use some help with the damage. For curios, I suggest mostly sticking to passives. Under combat curios, use the Porcelain Arrowhead if you want to deal more damage, Earth Mother for better survivability. Under utility curios, the Amorphous Relic is your best bet for throughput, and if spec as healing, Relic of Sentience is useful for even more healing. Just like gear, Brann's level means more damage and survivability for him. To keep his levels up, run as high of a delve level as you can while the delve is bountiful. You can use alts to power him up too, and bountiful keys are not needed. The fundamentals of this encounter don't change regardless of your class or spec, although I am going to cover this from a DPS perspective mostly since that's going to be most of you, so here goes. He'll go through a rotation of abilities in an inconsistent order. Angler's Web is a line attack you can sidestep, otherwise it pulls you in, and if you survive it, you're also slowed. This is sometimes, but not always, followed up with Claw Smash. It's a very long-range cone AoE, which will basically kill you without a massive defensive cooldown or an immunity. I suggest not popping the cooldown to survive it though, you're much better off avoiding it every time. Horrendous Roar is a circle around the boss. After a short cast time, he'll deal damage and fear anyone inside the buff, both you and Brann. As melee, you want to try not to stand too far inside the boss, otherwise you're going to not have enough time to run out. As ranged, you'll want to be outside of its minimum range, but not too far in case he immediately targets you with Claw Smash. Enfeebling Spittle is a cast that inflicts a heavy damage over time and slow debuff on you. For the normal version of this encounter, you'll want to interrupt the cast pretty much every time, meaning, no matter your class or spec, you'll need to spec for an interrupt. You'll also want to consider having certain other abilities available in case Spittle does go off and Brann isn't able to cleanse off of you. In that case, refer to this list of abilities each class can pick up on top of your interrupts. From my experience, when I don't have my interrupt available, I let the cast go off and then I see what Brann does. If he doesn't cleanse me within 1 or 2 ticks of the debuff, I'll just cleanse it myself. Finally, there's Call Web Terror, which is when Zekvir will summon an egg. The egg has lots of health, and it'll hatch after 15 or so seconds. When it does, the ad will become active. Its health is based on the remaining health of the egg, but it has tons of life, and it casts Web Blast. If this is not interrupted, it deals high damage and stuns you for 6 very long seconds. The best way to handle this ability? It's not see it at all, as in kill the egg before it hatches. Unfortunately, there's no gaming this, like the boss abilities, they don't do damage to the egg or to the ad. The TLDR is that everything will kill you, if not handled or avoided correctly. Good luck, but let's get to how to do the fight. The boss will alternate abilities between several melee swings right on the pole, so be prepared to take some immediate damage. Healer Brann will also drop potions for you to quickly pick up. Pet classes will want to grab these as they refill both yours and your pet's HP. He'll go through Claw Smash, Angler's Web, and Horrendous Roar in an inconsistent pattern, but never do the same ability twice in a row. At mostly set intervals, the boss will cast Enfeebling Spittle. The cooldown is based on your class and spec. Ideally, you want to kick it, but also be prepared to cleanse it off right away if Brann doesn't do so first. Around every 40 seconds, the boss casts Web Tear and summons the egg. So now it's game time. The egg is again a DPS check. Are you dealing enough damage that the egg dies before the cast is complete? I suggest holding on to your DPS cooldowns for the egg. Letting it hatch will slow down the fight considerably, and it might force you to use your interrupts or other cooldowns like stuns and other CC to keep it from casting while you're trying to kill it, while you're interrupting the boss or cleansing debuffs, while avoiding shockwaves and the AoE fear. So it's doable, but if you find that you're unable to kill the egg more often than not, consider coming back with better gear. Other frustrations with the egg come from its placement, which again is very inconsistent. The visual indicator isn't the easiest thing to see, and the location is random. It might spawn right under the boss. It might go clear across the room, which spells huge trouble because of the randomness of the boss's attacks. It's very easy to chase after the egg, only for the boss to do a shockwave you have pretty much no hope of avoiding. It's also very easy to lose out on a lot of egg damage because you're slowly moving the boss over instead because you're being careful and he's casting his spittle or his AoE instead. You really wish he would just do his shockwave right away, that way you can just run over. This issue is a much bigger problem for melee DPS, obviously. Ranged always want to be at most 20 or so yards away, and they'll be able to cover the room while being able to avoid boss AoE. A lot of the fight lies with luck, that egg placement is forgiving, and also skill at improvising when the order of casts isn't to your liking. There's lots of room to improvise, including the use of defensives, immunities, and stuns, which will only work on the ad after it hatches. But again, if you're finding that the egg is hatching too much, just come back with better gear. Just my opinion, I don't think this encounter requires the min-maxing of stats just yet. That's more of a long-term goal. Higher item level with trinket and talent choices focused on burst damage should be enough at this level. Also, you want to watch out when maneuvering around this elevated ramp. There are spots where your character can get kind of stuck as you're navigating up and down the angled areas, which can be fatal when trying to run away from AoE. Also, the boss's visual shockwave doesn't show up on this elevation, but it'll definitely still hit you. Here's a trick, if you want to call it that. You might reflexively know it already, but if not, it's a very powerful tool to help you maneuver in combat. WoW relies on you facing your enemy to use most abilities, and sometimes you need to choose between firing off that kill shot or running out of the AoE fear. Now you can do both by jumping in the direction you want to go, as in away from the fear, while using the mouse button to turn your character slightly towards the enemy, fire off that ability, and then turn right back and keep running. By jumping, you're still moving in that intended direction even if you're facing the opposite, and the game acknowledges your location through that whole jump, meaning you're able to avoid that AoE. You don't need to angle yourself directly at your target, just enough so the game acknowledges that you're looking towards the boss in your field of vision. This is often done when strafing, which is to run sideways but at an angle while you can still aim at your target. I'm just adding jumping into the equation here to act as a kind of evasive maneuver. Now, like I said, you're probably well practiced at this by now if you've been kiting enemies, as in keeping your distance from enemies while strafing and using abilities to deal damage. It's pretty important in this fight when running away from AoE fears and shockwaves. But of course, practice is the #1 weapon in this encounter, and it'll be too long of a guide to cover what to do or what you should have available in case the boss pattern shifts to this and that multiplied by class and spec choice. Delves on their own introduced, maybe reintroduced, the older WoW style of PvE combat, with tougher enemies and using your class toolkit to safely pull and shift the battlefield to your favor. Zekvir introduces a super boss that might not measure up to the likes of the Mage Tower encounters, but it teaches valuable lessons on damage checks, self-preservation, and improvisation when things go wrong, and odds are good that things will go wrong. Still, I found this to be a fun fight to learn on several classes so far, classes that I normally don't run any sort of challenging content, and between Delves and Zekvir, I have my personal space to find out, even if I do it on stream and you guys just watch me get creamed. But otherwise, I hope this helped a bit. If so, hit the like button, share it with folks who need it, subscribe for more coverage, catch me live, and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.